Welcome back. This is Nic, Carol, and Brian Kellogg with the Kellogg Family Real Estate Livestream. Today we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about the September numbers for Sacramento. We're also going to talk about some coming legislation that's going to help housing, SB 8, 9, and 10, which is going to change some things about zoning. And then as well, we're also going to talk about Ryan Gorman, who is Coldwell Banker's CEO, who spoke recently at one of our functions about the market. Carol, do you want to talk about the September numbers?
I do. I love looking at the numbers, and every day we go and look at houses and we feel like we know what's going on in the market, but it isn't really until we get the statistics that we're able to prove what we're seeing in the market. So let's take a look at what happened in September. So when you look at this first graph, the first graph is actually for the 4-county region. So we're going to look at the 4 counties first, and then we're going to narrow it down a little bit and take a look at Sacramento, specifically Sac County, and then we'll go into a couple of other things I think you'll find interesting. So this is a graph of the last 15 months in our 4-county region. So if you look at the far right column, that dark green, that's how many homes closed escrow. Now, the red line above it is the pending sales. So you'll see that the pending sales actually went up a little bit. That blue line on the top, that is new listings. So I think what you will see, and this is pretty traditional, if you go back 12 months and look to see what happened a year ago, what we see is a traditional slowdown in the number of new listings coming on the market. But if you also look at the November, December numbers for last year, you'll see that we had a lot of sales. The end of the year was very, very strong, and that was in the midst of COVID. And you can see that our sales were very good. Well, we're looking at that same thing again right now. Our sales activity seems to be continuing to do very well. The next graph then will show you what we're doing as far as pricing. So the pricing you'll see in the Sac County region, or this is the 4 counties. It dipped a little bit, but I don't think that's a trend. You know, we can never say that 1 month is a trend. It could have been just a number of homes that, had a reduced price. But I will say that the numbers are still very solid. If you look at the graph after that, what you'll see is the days on market. That continues to be just about 2 to 3 weeks for homes to get into escrow. But then that top line, it's showing you that the sellers are still getting over their asking price. So, from time to time, people will say, well, I'm seeing price reductions. I'm seeing that, people are coming on and having to reduce their price. Well, can I just tell you that that's because they came on too high? Because what this is showing you is that the homes that are selling close to or over asking price. This is your median. The median sales price in the 4-county region, of course, is over 500. And then the last graph shows you how much inventory we have. And this is based on closed sales. Now, it's healthy for us to get more inventory. So this shows us that we have a 1-month supply, which is still very low, is still very much a seller's market. It takes up to 3 to 6 months to actually have a more balanced market. So, we still have plenty of inventory. The next graph then just shows specifically Sac County. I was interested to see what's happening in this county itself specifically, and this is showing you, that the sales are very good. We have inventory, things are selling quickly. Pending sales, took a nice jump actually in the month. Next graph then will show you the prices, and again they took a little bit of a dip, not a lot. The next one shows you days on market, as well as what's the percentage of what the sellers are getting. It's very consistent with what I just showed you. And then the final 2 graphs, this one shows you the median sales price in just Sacramento County. And then the final one is how much inventory we have. So based on the closed sales, we have actually fewer homes in Sac County than we do in the 4-county region. One thing I did notice, and this should not surprise anyone, is that El Dorado County is, seeing more inventory come on the market. And if I could see a raise of hands, who thinks that might be because of the fires? And so I think that certainly some people are, saying that they're putting their house on the market and, kind of tired of the smoke and the fire seasons that we're starting to see up there pretty routinely. So we are definitely seeing more inventory in El Dorado County, which affects that 4-county region. Okay, the next then I wanted to just break it down into price, because I think sometimes we need to see where are the bulk of the sales. This is the over 500, or I'm sorry, this is the under 500 market, which that's our first time home buyers. Still a very strong market. Still lots of pending sales. Then the next one is the 500 to 800,000. Which again, very good sales. Look at that activity. That's our move up buyer. So that's the seller that sold the 500 and is now buying the 7 to 800,000. And that red line is continuing to go up. So that really shows us that pending sales are very healthy in that 5 to 800 market in Sac County. Next one then is the 800 to $1.5 million. Next. Let's there we go. That's the 800 to $1.5 million. You can see that we got a little bit more inventory. So that light green line there popped up. Actually, it's the same as last month, but it's showing that there is a little bit more inventory in that price range, which is not surprising. A few more of the large homes that are coming on the market and take a little bit longer to sell. And then the last one is the over $1.5 million. And to believe it or not, this is still a healthy seller's market. This is really, it has 3 months worth of inventory, which again, that's still a healthy market. So it just means you have more choices. So in that higher end, price bracket in Sac County, we are definitely seeing some inventory there. Now we did just finish up. You know what I wanted to show, Brian, if you would show that next graph. What I wanted to show you is, let's take a fast peek at the San Francisco market, just out of curiosity. And so in San Francisco, this is their market. They have had good sales. Now you can see a year ago, they had a lot of homes on the market. So remember when San Francisco, people were kind of getting out of those big cities that were very congested, a lot of people put their homes on the market. Then it sort of tapered down and people calmed down and things got back to normal. But I will tell you that the San Francisco market, their median sales price is $1.5 million, and their price per square foot is 5 times what we are seeing here. And so that's why people come here, because not only is it a great lifestyle, but affordability. They are buying little homes, that median $1.5 million with prices the way that they are, they're getting a little tiny 3-bedroom, 2-bath for the same price that you're getting a very nice home here in Sacramento. So little different lifestyle, not being in the city, but people are definitely going for that. The one thing I did want to say is, many times our question is, when are we going to see changes? And I can tell you, like Nic said, we had a conference, a 2-day Coldwell Banker conference, and our CEO, Ryan Gorman, he is very confident in the market and that 2022 will continue to be just as good as this year has been. People are looking for places to put their money, places that they can invest. Rates are very low. They'll continue to stay low through next year. New home construction is definitely a factor. We're just not seeing builders being able to come into the market and to, build because of the constraints, because of land, because of labor problems, because of, materials are not readily available. And so for that reason, we're definitely seeing, a lot of good things happening to the resale market, but not so much for the builders.
So there's a couple of new pieces of legislation that Governor Newsom has signed, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. It's SB 8, 9, and 10. Now, these 3 bills are a little bit different. SB 8 extends the Housing Crisis Act of 2019. And so this is a piece of legislation that was already in existence and had already been being worked on. And basically, it jumpstarts more housing production. It changes the way that the city and that each city is going to work with builders, how they're going to allow permitting and things like that. SB 9 is aimed more at individual homeowners. This is going to allow for an individual homeowner to change the setup of their property and maybe make it into a duplex or multiple units. And then SB 10 establishes voluntary streamlined process for cities to zone for multi-unit housing, making it easier and faster to construct housing. And so SB 10 was actually written by a senator from San Francisco. And so I think something that's interesting to think about when you're talking about these pieces of legislation is that California is a very diverse, large area. And so, these the zoning for cities is, from what I understand, is voluntary. And so it'll depend on what city you're in. This was written by somebody from the city of San Francisco. And so when we're talking about San Francisco, they're potentially trying to fit 10 units into one building. Whereas here in Sacramento or some of our more suburban areas, we're considering, like, is a duplex going to come in on my street? Is something that's not going to be like the houses around it come into our area? And so what I think is important to remember is that California has a pretty extreme housing crisis, right? The number of people who rent in California is somewhere around 45%. And so when you're talking about, 13 million households in California, 6 million of those are renters. And there's some statistics about basically 3 million. So half of the renters in California are paying more than 30% of their income for rent. And so that's what we consider unaffordable housing. And so even a smaller portion of those 1.5 million people are paying more than 50% of their income towards rent. And so the numbers that we're trying to fix as far as the housing crisis and housing shortage are gigantic. And what it looks like these couple of bills are slated to do is somewhere in the range of like 84,000 units, right? And so this is going to take a huge chunk out of some homeless communities. It's going to add a lot of places for some people who could not afford a place to go, but it's not a huge number in the big scheme of things, right? This isn't really going to completely solve the housing crisis in California. But I think when you see some of the news about it, or when you read some of the articles, it seems pretty extreme, our reaction to it and what we think it's going to do. I would say that, we'll have to obviously watch it and see kind of how people actually apply how these laws are going to change. It's not going to make it free. People are still going to have to pay to do this. And so does it make sense to bulldoze a house and put up a duplex in a nice neighborhood? I really don't think we're going to see a lot of that. I think there's a lot more other programs that change the value of homes a lot more than something like this would negatively affect the value of homes. Now, we'll have to see which cities implement these things and which, there was an interesting part of the conversation about how, will HOAs or cities rules take precedent? And so that'll be an interesting thing to pan out and see, what they actually allow us to do.
Right. And I think too, when you think about the cost and does it really make sense, right now you can put an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, on your property if it's approved by the city. So I think being able to do that more often would be a benefit. I think many people are dealing with, parents that need to have a home that's closer to your home perhaps. And so we're starting to see these ADUs pop up and they haven't been approved in a lot of areas. So, that if they're changing zoning laws, that all by itself could be a real benefit to some people. And the cost of that, makes sense. But I think for people to panic that they're going to get, into their neighborhoods a lot more construction and new, homes going up on a lot behind someone, I don't realistically think that's going to happen as much as people might think.
No. And when we're talking about suburban Sacramento, there's not a ton of land left, right? And so a lot of the land here is already controlled by a certain, person or company. And so, I think it's going to be a lot less that we see this actually affect us in our area, whereas we're probably going to see it in bigger cities like LA and San Francisco, where you're going to see, an extra 1,000 units go in this high density area. One of the things that Newsom's press release has talked about is how they want to get more people closer to the high density working areas, right? This is part of his climate change, piece. And so what he's trying to do is make it to where there's less people commuting into the cities. And I think that's what we're really going to see this do, is to add more units in the cities where there's a lot of places to work.
Got it. It would be interesting too to see if this would allow, like, for instance, people that live out in Placer County and Loomis and some of these different acreage properties, when they're constrained to only build, 1 or 2 units, can this now open them up to be able to put more homes on, their acreage? I think that would be kind of a nice change. Something that we've always seen is when we're showing property and when there's something, let's say someone has converted a pool house into a little granny unit, we'll call it. The telltale sign is that you weren't ever supposed to have 2 ovens, 2 stoves on one parcel. That was, unless you had the permit approving, that second unit, you could always tell, because in that back unit, it was a hot plate. And so it didn't have a stove. So you knew that that was not approved as actually an ADU. But, this might allow for more of that. And I think, that's something that we're, hopefully going to see more of, I think, in the, with these changes. But we shall see. It's just like with anything. I think, these laws are made, and then we have to see how they play out and how people implement them and how many people fight it.
You hit on sort of the irony of it, right? That like Placer County and some of these areas that have a little bit more land may benefit from it, or maybe even benefit from it more. But you might see those cities that are a little bit more conservative legislatively kind of pull back on this and not want these kinds of things because they're worried about the suburbs, getting new duplexes or something like that. Whereas I think it could be a much bigger factor on creating some housing in those rural areas where, people aren't necessarily going there for jobs, but it's still somewhere that someone would want to live.
Right. Well, and when you talk about zoning of land, a builder, if they're constrained to how many units they can put on that piece of property, that obviously cuts into their profit. Whereas if now some of those zoning laws are opened up and made more flexible, and what can you actually put there, we may see, some better housing options go up for them as well. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. We shall see. I do know, though, that we're seeing when it comes to new construction, one thing that Ryan did talk about was the fact that new construction is headed more toward the rental market than it is the resale market because of the profit structure, and just exactly what you're talking about. How many people in California are actually tenants as opposed to homeowners now that our prices are going the way that they are?
Right. There's such a shortage that rental prices have, rental costs have gone up, because I think typically what it was, right, is that rent costs would go down as housing costs went up. And now for some reason, because of the shortage, we're seeing both go up, right? And so we're in this unprecedented environment where now these big companies are able to pencil out even in the higher end of the market, and it's still more profitable for them to rent it out, as opposed to building to sell them.
Right. Well, and we haven't really seen a lot of things happen as opposed to with regard to the moratorium on the rental eviction situation. But I do know people are nervous. I did get a call to sell a couple of duplexes, and I've been in touch with those tenants, and they are on edge. They're worried about what is going to happen to them if they are given notice. And so I understand it's a very real problem for people right now. If you're renting and you're only on a month to month, and then the seller decides to sell, and what's going to happen to those tenants. So I think the fourth quarter could play out to be very difficult for tenants as a whole. Okay, well, let's talk about something more fun than tenant eviction.
Skipping right over to something totally different.
Yeah. So this weekend would be a perfect time. I don't know about you, but I love the fall weather. I just think it's such a beautiful time to be in our area in the fall. And one thing that is going right now and is a fun place to go with the family is to Apple Hill. So we've got on our page here, and we'll post it for you, the map of Apple Hill and a lot of different things that you can do up there. It's a destination that's very fun for all ages. And one thing that we are doing is, along with our encouraging you to go up to Apple Hill, because that's where we're headed, is to maybe get in on a contest that we're putting together, a pumpkin carving contest.
We'd
Nic,
like to
can
have
we
you
talk
guys.
about that?
Yeah, we'd like to have you guys carve your own pumpkins. Take a picture of yourself holding the pumpkin. Go onto social media and send us the picture. And the best pumpkin carving is going to get a $50 gift certificate to High Hill Ranch in Apple Hill,
Excellent.
where we'll be
That'll be
this weekend.
fun. Oh, there we go.
This is the
Is that our
sample
first
photo.
entry?
Yeah, no, this is what we hope you look like.
That'll be fun. Okay. I think the three of us should carve a pumpkin
I'm definitely going to do one.
in honor of
I
our
can't win, but
contest. Okay. All right,
Yeah,
Bri. Don't
sounds
forget to
great.
carve your pumpkin.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll chime in. My children are done screaming in the background, so I'll unmute.
So every week we bring different topics to you. This week, of course, because we've got the September numbers, we wanted to show you what's happening. If there's a specific zip code or area that you're curious about and you'd like more information, please be sure to shoot us a message. We'd love to, pull that up and do a little brief overview of that for you. We certainly enjoy looking at the numbers with you, and not every area is the same. Some are doing much better than others. But I will say I was pleasantly surprised that everybody, seems to be having some good luck. The last graph that I did want to show you, Bri, if you wanted to pull, if you wanted to pull up, we're going to show you both ends of the spectrum. So the condo market is one that maybe you, haven't thought about. So if you're renting right now and maybe you think, gee, maybe I could jump into the market by buying a condo, you certainly can. And if you can see here, a lot of other people are doing that too. That's the Sacramento condo market in all price ranges. And then the next graph shows you what has happened with values. And so, sometimes people say, well, I don't want to buy because we're at the top end. I don't think we're at the top end, folks. I think we've got a ways to go. So, but this does show you that it had a 41% increase in values in the condo market over the last 15 months. So that is a tremendous increase. So if you bought, there goes my lights. If you bought a condo 15 months ago, you're going to see a great increase in your value. So congratulations on that. You've got some nice equity there. And then the other end of the spectrum, I'll let Nic show you.
This house was the most expensive house in Sacramento County in September?
Placer County.
In Placer County, I'm sorry.
Kind of speaks for itself,
That
It really does. I'm not going to speak to this because it's
seems like we need some pretty dramatic music playing, or an organ, or a violinist walking through there. So
I like the Las Vegas fountain out front.
Oh, there you go. So the moral of the story is that the real estate market is doing exceptionally well. I really do believe, if I'm a betting person, I would say that the fourth quarter is going to be very solid. If anything, we need more houses to come on the market because the buyers are salivating, and we're still seeing multiple offers. And that house I showed you last week, multiple offers gone in 5 days. So lots of good things happening, both ends, both the condo market and the extreme market. So we'd love to help you. If that's something you want to do in the fourth quarter, definitely let us know. But in the meantime,
well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next Wednesday, 5 o'clock.
Thank you.